Thank you and good morning. It's not really me you should be clapping. My task here is to introduce the last of our keynote lectures, which will be delivered by Rosi Braidotti. Rosi is, among other things, Distinguished University Professor and Founding Director of the Center for the Humanities at Utrecht University in the Netherlands. Her latest books include titles which connect very closely with the theme of her lecture this morning: The Posthuman, which was published by Polity Press in 2013, and the edited volume Conflicting Humanities, co-edited with Paul Gilroy, published in 2016 by Bloomsbury. In addition, she delivered the Tanner Lectures on Human Values in 2017 on the posthuman, and I understand that those lectures are available online. This morning, Rosi will be doing us the pleasure and honor of giving us her thoughts on the posthuman condition and the critical post-humanities. Rosi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, very gracious Chair, and thank you to the conference organizers for inviting me to come to this exciting, thought-provoking conference, and a particular thanks to my dear friend and colleague, Kim Jung-song, who is a real ally in so many aspects of life and work. Thank you very much for getting me here. Time is at a premium as usual, and I have a lot to tell you. So if I start speaking too fast, wave me down. It's my Italian side that will show. I want to start by clicking the monster, talking about the posthuman condition, not as some sort of speculative fiction to do with science fictions to come, but as a salient feature of our historicity. It is a condition that we're in the process of becoming, and I'll try to explain what I mean by it in the course of the 10-15 minutes that I have at my disposal. I would invite you to think of it as a convergence phenomenon, a convergence between posthumanism, which is the critique of a universalist idea of men, to make it quite clear, him, about whom more in a minute, and post-anthropocentrism. If we have in the humanities a language to define universalist humanistic notions of men, the language of European universalist humanism, I would argue that we really do not have much of a terminology, let alone a tradition, where am I clicking here? A tradition of thought to think of post-anthropocentrism. We do not think of ourselves as a species in the humanities. We are very, very happy to leave species thinking to the sciences, thereby creating a problem that is the problem of the two cultures. And I think the profound anthropocentrism of the humanities is one of the things that are falling apart right now because of historical conditions. Again, I am not a transhumanist. I'm not talking about transcendence of consciousness into digital computers. I'm talking about historical conditions that displace the centrality of anthropos and the sovereignty of men. This is the argument that I want to run, and I want you to keep in mind the question of the convergence, because in too much posthumanist scholarship, the displacement of anthropocentrism, that is to say, discussions about digital networks, artificial intelligence, robotics on the one hand, biogenetics, life sciences, genomic and gene engineering on the other, let alone all the discussion about climate change and the Anthropocene, are kept very segregated. They are really emerging as distinct and separate fields of studies. And this is what I will go and show you in a minute as the new post-humanities. There are meta-discourses that concentrate in one aspect of the posthuman convergence. And what I would like you to do is to keep the broader picture in mind and to say that, yes, we may be becoming this, but that is not the only feature of what we are becoming. Keep the broader picture in mind. It's a convergence phenomenon. There are multiple things happening at the same time. So a lot of the papers that I heard at this wonderful conference concentrated in one of the aspects of the posthuman conditions. There is obviously the Korean social imaginary is in love with artificial intelligence. You guys have gone robots, and you are a massive scientific culture, so why wouldn't you do that? But that is only part of the picture of the posthuman condition. The posthuman is not disembodied and disembedded. It is embodied and embedded in the conditions of our historicity. And I think you will recognize in this, hopefully, my training as a French philosopher studied with Foucault, for whom materialism remains a crucial point of reference. And we have to be grounded in the conditions of our historicity to make any statement at all. If posthumanism gets disembedded and disembodied in transhuman deliriums of transcendence of the body, we're in trouble, in serious trouble. So let me show you another aspect, one of the most important aspects of our historicity, and that is the famous Anthropocene. We did not talk a lot about climate change in this conference, and it's again an aspect of posthuman thinking that you only concentrate on the cheerful things. It's also very polite and Asian and Korean to do this. We don't want to keep the nasty things in mind too much. But there is an Anthropocene issue. There is a climate change issue. And the Anthropocene is the context within which the great transhumanist, posthumanist discourses and practices are taking place. In talking about the Anthropocene and climate change, I do not mean to single out just the environment. Or if we are talking about the environment, let us do it with Félix Guattari and Gilles Deleuze. When you say environment, you mean ecological environment, social environment, psychic, affective environment. You mean at least 3 plateaus, if not more, of ecological thinking. Multiple ecologies of belonging, not just, climate change. And climate change is a social climate change. It's a critical climate change. It's a change of climate of thinking, as well as lack of air and lack of resources. And again, Anthropocene scholarship tends to be very, very separate, for instance, from digital transhumanist robotic scholarship. We need to make those connections. The Anthropocene has done what everything does in advanced capitalism. It goes schizophrenic. They enter spins and they go discursively delirious. So now which Anthropocene do you practice? We have the Capitalocene, we have the Cthulhucene, even if you can pronounce it, Anthropocene, the plastic scene, the plantation scene, the Misanthropocene. Look at the dates of publication. That's just in the last couple of years. So I think there will be a discussion here, which I have developed in a special issue that we have just added of the journal Theory, Culture and Society, about what we call epistemic accelerations. You take a concept and it goes into a spin. That's typical of our times. It is capitalism as schizophrenia, as Deleuze and Guattari pointed out. The Anthropocene has gone that way. And yet, clearly, the problem exists. And as we talk about transcendence into digitally the sort of designed frame of transhumanist consciousness, this is the way our world is beginning to look. Yes, it is plasticocene, and the acidification of the seas, the lack of air, which is the problem of Asia. You guys have no oxygen. How can we not think the problem of lack of air next to the massive power of cognitive capitalism as expressed in artificial intelligence and in robotics? It's not as if we have the computing artificial intelligence industry on Monday and the acidification of the seas on Tuesdays and the Anthropocene on Wednesday and a problem with migration on Thursdays. These are all interconnected aspects of this moment that we are going through. And we need a meta-discourse to keep these aspects together in order not to lose a track of what is actually happening to us. So it is the case that we, in inverted commas, are in this predicament together, but we is not a unitary, solid notion. It is not the universal humanistic man covering all of humanity. It is a situated, very specific we that is differential, but materially grounded. And I have heard a lot of sort of cynical papers in this conference referring to any notion of non-universalism with a word that I hadn't heard for about 20 years. And I was very surprised, but I know it's circulating both in China and in Asia as a term of disparagement, and that word is postmodern. I swear to God, I hadn't heard it for 20 years. But the moment you say there is no universalist man, the specter of postmodern relativism rises from its ashes. So I would like to put this down to rest immediately, to say we have differentially but grounded perspective. We is not one, it is many. It's not a recipe for fragmentation and relativism. The term that is being circulated in feminist theories has always been politics of location, embedded and embodied, grounded perspective. Another term that is circulating now, coming more from indigenous epistemologies and decolonial theory, is perspectivism. Perspectivism. You find perspectivism in Spinoza. You find perspectivism in Leibniz. You find perspectivism in Nietzsche, read with Derrida and Deleuze. Perspectives, multiple perspectives. That's the opposite of relativism. It is a grounded but differential material set of perspectives. That is the philosophy that we need to make sense of the particular condition that we're in. The humanities have answered these challenges with great vigor and enormous creativity. And what I call the critical post-humanities are new discourses that have emerged, like yesterday, in the last 5 to 8 years, across a number of disciplines. And I think the way that you should do this is to bring them back to your practice, your institutions, and see how they function in your context. The ecological humanities, also known as environmental humanities, split into blue humanities dealing with the sea and green humanities dealing with the earth, and sustainable humanities, organic, greater, interactive humanities. Notice that these fields of studies call themselves humanities. And the project that I would have is to ask the question, what is the human in these new humanities? What is the human in the digital humanities, which is the other big boys of around the block? Medical, biohumanities, neural, translational, community resilient. All of these, I'm collecting this, are humanities that actually exist. I haven't done the big data work, but they are real-life events. They are all programs and projects, websites, curricula. You will find them pretty much established from Harvard, Stanford, who are pioneers in this, to the German university system, who's pioneering the environmental humanities with incredible genius, really, from Scheler and Hegel through Goethe to Sloterdijk. The Germans are on it. The German government has spent millions to develop the green humanities. To the medical and the biological that are dealing with, among others, with what we used to call disability studies and other types of studies. It has been formalized, and the literature on the critical post-humanities is by now, I would say, canonical. Carrie Wolf in 2010 coins the term post-humanities. It's a book series with Minnesota Press. Gross 2018, the Inhuman Humanities, Digital, Catherine Hales, 1999. She defines the switch from the digital humanities. And the question here is, and I hope that I'll be able to come to it, what is the correlation between what we used to call media studies or new media studies and the digital humanities? At what particular point does computer science and media studies mutate into something that calls itself the digital humanities? And if my university is any evidence, the digital humanities are getting 5 times the amount of funding that the classical humanities are getting. And when you go and look at what goes under the digital humanities, it's mostly engineering and computer science and a little slice of history and a tiny bit of inevitable philosophical ethics, inevitably Kantian, neo-universal, because we have to keep Confucian Chinese philosophers happy so that we have an alliance between the robotic industries cemented by neo-Kantian universalism, if you know where I'm going with this argument. All of that is in place, but they call themselves humanities. They don't call themselves digital studies. It's as if the field of the humanities, which has been under threat and quite an amount of political and cultural criticism for decades, was being reterritorialized. In Deleuzian terms, we have a recodification of the field. It's as if we had lost the humanities to new codification, territorializations that call themselves digital, transformative, very annoying, I should have thought of it, nomadic humanities, but I didn't think of it. Kate Stimpson did. Adjectival humanities, it's ironical, but quite to the point. The humanities that are up for grabs, make of it what you want. I'm looking at my chair. How much more time do I have, Dr. Crowley? 2 minutes, okay. I can do it in 2 minutes. My question concerning these fields then is, how are we to read them? Are they just cynically capitalist, cognitive capitalism taking over a declining field, a sick field of the humanities? Or is there hope for some intervention in these areas to make the humanities of today go critically post-human? To what an extent can the humanities shake off our attachment to Eurocentric humanism, salvaging aspects of that humanism that we think are worth saving? I'm not saying throw it out. I'm simply saying do not re-embrace humanism without the critiques that women have made of it. Universal human rights. Yes, thank you very much, French Revolution, but those universal human rights didn't cover the women. When Olympe de Gouges wrote, in response to the French Revolution, the Universal Declaration of Women's Rights, do you know what happened to dear Olympe de Gouges? She was sent to the guillotine immediately. Thank you, boys. Well done. When Toussaint Louverture applied the principle of the French Revolution to the slavery issue, and in Haiti led a revolution to apply the principle of the French Revolution to the abolition of slavery, the French Imperial Army went in to put him down. Thank you, boys. Universal human rights. What is that man? Who does he represent? This is 2018. We need a differential, grounded, neo-universal, not uncritically that old humanism. But it doesn't mean no humanism at all. Let's be critical about it. But more importantly for the humanities, to what an extent can we shake off our attachment to anthropos, this belief that man is the center of creation and his woman are the center of creation, species supremacies? Can we develop some humility? And here I think the discussion with Buddhism and Taoism and some of the Asian philosophies that have a nature-culture continuum can be very productive if we enter the discussion from the European philosophies that have a nature-culture continuum. And my proposal is Spinoza reread with Deleuze and Guattari, a nature-cultural continuum that we have in our history that would bring us down to German Romanticism, opening out beyond the Eurocentrism, beyond the demented supremacism, opening up to a dialogue. I think that we do need, and I'm going to jumping ahead to the images I wanted to give you. We need to be able to think that we are in this predicament together, but we are not one and the same. We need to be able to think this sort of stuff. Oh, this is our agriculture. This is biocapitalism at work, but the other face of it is the necropolitical management of infrahuman lives, lives that do not matter at all. We are in this together. We are not one and the same. Differential material perspectives to become one and with, and hopefully for the world. Thank you.